中国的婚恋市场。
China's dating market is rapidly turning into a real-life kingdom of women. In Chengdu, the female-to-male ratio at matchmaking corner parks is a staggering 43-1. In Hangzhou, it's 40-1, and in Nanchang, 36-1. Things got so overwhelming in Chengdu that People's Park put up an official notice. Female registrations are full. Sign-ups temporarily suspended. Embarrassing? Absolutely. But once you understand the real reasons behind this, it gets even more alarming. According to China's 7th National Population Census, there are 34 million more men than women in China, with 14.52 million more eligible men aged 20 to 40 than women. If men vastly outnumber women, why are matchmaking corners filled exclusively with women? The harsh truth: men simply stopped showing up. Part 1. The shedding of traditional responsibility. Many men are giving up on traditional societal expectations. What does that mean? They aren't buying homes, getting married, or supporting families instead. They are learning to please themselves. Look at the data. In 2025, China's male skincare market reached 3.5 billion, growing at an annual rate of 18%. The gaming market hit nearly 49 billion and keeps climbing. Male medical aesthetic spending jumped 27% year-over-year. Even seemingly niche markets like fishing gear generated 1.3 billion in 2024, projected to hit 3.5 billion within 3 years. While people talk about economic downturns and spending cuts, male self-care consumption is growing against the trend. Why spend money on someone else when investing in yourself feels so much better? Phoenix News reported a story about a middle-aged man who fought to recover his $26,000 bride price. Without looking back, he took that money and went on a road trip across China. That choice represents a growing mindset. If marriage has become the worst return on investment, men are opting out entirely. Part 2. The crushing cost of marriage. A meal on a blind date isn't expensive, but getting married afterward certainly is. In China, men carry the vast majority of that financial burden. Consider these figures. In 2023, the average cost of a wedding for young couples was around 46,000, while the national per capita disposable income was just 400. That means it takes 8 full years of net income to afford a single wedding, and that's in cities. In rural areas, it takes 16 years of income without spending a single cent on basic living expenses. In the 1970s, a wedding cost a few $dozen. Today, down payments, bride prices, home renovations, and wedding ceremonies start at $83,000. With no upper cap, over 3 decades, marriage costs have surged thousands of times over, while wages have increased barely 100-fold. You can't win a race where your legs can't keep up. And the costs don't end at the wedding. In 2024, there were 3.51 million divorce registrations against 6.1 million marriage registrations, a divorce-to-marriage ratio approaching nearly 60%. Then factor in the cost of raising children. Raising 2 children from birth to age 17 averages around $75,000. Supporting them through college graduation brings that figure to $94,000. China ranks second globally in child-rearing costs relative to income, trailing only South Korea. So the picture becomes clear. Men haven't vanished, they've simply done the math. Marriage means draining their life savings, taking on heavy debt, facing a 60% chance of divorce, and shouldering child-rearing costs alone. When the math is this obvious, more and more men choose to cut their losses early and refuse to enter the game altogether. That is the real reason behind the female-heavy imbalance at matchmaking corners. It isn't that men aren't available, it's that they no longer want to play.
I just finished watching that video about how China's dating market is turning into a real-life kingdom of women, with matchmaking corners showing female-to-male ratios of dozens to 1. To be honest, I wasn't surprised at all. My first thought was it's about damn time. I really want to ask the women still acting picky in the dating market. Do you seriously think this is 10 years ago? Do you really believe Chinese men will still queue up and drain their life savings just to beg you to marry them? Wake up, times have changed. In China, marriage has never been a matter of just 2 people. It involves 2 families and often ends up being a burden dumped entirely onto the man's shoulders. The house, the car, the bride price, the wedding, which of these isn't pressed firmly onto the man's head? In the past, men were willing to tough it out, emptying 6 wallets just to get married because they saw it as responsibility and commitment. Now, men have woken up. Why did they wake up? because they simply can't carry the weight anymore. Look at the current economic environment. Everyone knows how tough things are. Tech layoffs, factory wage cuts, 8 out of 10 small businesses barely hanging on. So many people face the threat of getting laid off out of nowhere, while small business owners open and close shop in endless frustration. Money is incredibly hard to make. In times like these, demanding hundreds of thousands of dollars in bride prices, a fully paid-off apartment, and a lavish wedding, do you really think that's reasonable? Yet some women haven't lowered their standards one bit. No house, no car, no marriage. A bride price that's too low is seen as a loss of face, a simple wedding isn't good enough, and a small diamond ring is a deal breaker. In China, the whole concept of a bride price has gotten completely out of hand. It used to be a symbolic gesture for good luck. Now it's basically a price tag. Some regions demand 28,000, 42,000, or even over 70,000. Are you marrying off a daughter or selling one? What's even more frustrating is that some of these women make only $500 to $700 a month, spend recklessly, live paycheck to paycheck, and yet demand that a man must own a home, drive a nice car, hold substantial savings, and earn tens of thousands a year. Do you not have a realistic view of your own situation? Why expect your partner to be a superhero? And what's the biggest irony? After receiving a massive bride price and tying the knot, if things don't work out, people walk away just like that. The divorce-to-marriage ratio in China is approaching nearly 60%. A man wipes out his family savings to marry you, only for you to ask for a divorce 2 years later over incompatible personalities, keeping the bride price and claiming half the house. What does a man get out of that? Is he running a charity? Just how high is the cost of getting married in China? A down payment costs tens of thousands, the bride price another tens of thousands, home renovations and the wedding add tens of thousands more, and raising a child through college costs another small fortune. Adding it all up, it easily clears 150,000. But how much can an average Chinese family save in a year? Many families save for a lifetime just to cover a down payment. Getting married drains 2 generations dry. So Chinese men have gotten smart. No more chasing, no more pleasing, no more getting married. Isn't it better to spend that money on yourself? Buy a nice phone, go traveling, hit the gym, go fishing live as comfortably as you want. If you earn $1,100 a month, spend $550, save $550. Life is great. Why drain your savings and take on a mountain of debt for someone who might walk away at any moment? Look at male consumer spending in China today. Skincare, medical aesthetics, fishing gear are all booming. It's not surprising. Men have finally realized that pleasing yourself is far better than pleasing someone else. In the past, all that money was spent on women. Now it's spent on themselves. Isn't that better? Some women still complain, asking where have all the good men gone? The good men aren't dead. They just refuse to be your ATM any longer. They're at home playing video games, fishing, or grabbing drinks with their buddies, living a life far more comfortable than being with you. There's an old Chinese saying, build a family, then build a career. It used to be family first, then career. Now, building a family costs way more than starting a business. At least a business gives you something to strive for. Building a family just grinds you into the dirt. I'm not saying all women are like this, nor am I saying marriage is inherently bad. What I'm saying is that when the total cost of marriage in Chinese society has reached such an absurd level, and when men run the numbers only to realize they can neither afford it nor risk it, holding people to standards from 10 years ago means no one is going to play the game with you anymore. When the economy is tough, everyone suffers. In China, it's hard for men, and it's hard for women. But just because things are hard for you doesn't mean you can dump all the pressure onto men. Show a little mutual understanding, lower your expectations, and life can actually move forward. If you insist on forcing a man to empty his life savings just to satisfy your sense of security, the end result is simple. You stay unmarried, he stays single, and nobody wins. So stop asking where Chinese men have gone. Men haven't vanished, they just don't want to be the gullible fool who gets picked over, squeezed dry, and ultimately kicked to the curb. Anybody can do that math.